Hi, I'm Barbara, and today's Treehouse Talk is on communication skills.
And I'm Harold. Here we are for another Treehouse Talk, this time in Towering Pines Treehouse Cottage. To talk about communication, first let's think about how important that is. How can you have a relationship without communication? How can you begin to know each other if you can't understand each other? Now, each of us come from different places of life, and we all have different understandings of things, which sometimes gives us a little bit different vocabulary. And so we have to learn to understand each other's individual vocabulary to make sure we're understanding what we talk about. Now, a big part of that is not just speaking, but also listening. If we listen as much or more than we talk, then we have a good chance of reaching understanding. If I wanted you to listen to me, we have a little exercise that we've done before with people who are having struggles with listening. Partly is to get yourself a chance to be silent so you can actually listen to the other person. So many people are so interested in the next thing they're going to say, they're building up that in their minds, that they don't really listen to what the other person's saying. I've heard people arguing the same point without even realizing they're on the same side. So you take somebody and have them go and talk for 5 minutes, and you just listen to them and talk about this thing for 5 minutes, and you listen without comment, either verbal or visual with your face, but just listen. Then when they finish their 5 minutes, then there's your chance to comment. But your comment shouldn't be about judging what they're saying, but merely trying to understand it. This is what I heard you say. And they'll say, yes, you're right on, you got it right on the target. Or, boy, you must have not been listening at all because that's not what I said. Or, that's what they said, but for one reason or another, I didn't understand it because I didn't understand their vocabulary or what they were talking about. So then you got to communicate back and forth. How do we work this out? How do we make this clear? How do we reach understanding? See, communication is not a competition. It's working towards understanding.
And one of the skills that Harold just mentioned is called mirroring, where you listen to someone and then say back what you heard to check it out and see if that was right. One thing that's very important to communicate well is don't assume what the other person is thinking or saying or feeling. You need to check it out. Just as an example, let's say you think somebody's tone of voice shows some irritation or frustration, and you assume that they're upset with you or irritated. Don't assume what they're feeling or thinking. You need to check it out and ask, well, your voice tone sounds like you're feeling irritated. Are you upset about something? Find out, be curious, and ask, don't assume. One way that we assume almost unconsciously is from what are called triggers of past experiences. All of us have had experiences that were negative or even possibly traumatic. And so we don't want to experience that again. And so sometimes when we're listening to someone, we unconsciously assume that they're doing the negative thing that's from our past. Just as an example, let's say that your parents were very critical of you and were always putting you down, or your ex-spouse always put you down. So you come to the communication with some negative filters on your eyes and on your ears, where you hear things through a negative lens. And so you unconsciously assume that the person is trying to put you down because your past experience, your past trauma or hurt feelings are triggered by something in the present, but what you're really doing is reacting to the past rather than what they're really saying now.
Carrying historical baggage.
Right. And so if you have, a bigger reaction to what somebody's saying than the situation warrants, that's kind of a sure sign that you're reacting to a trigger from the past instead of what's being said right now. When Harold and I were together, we almost broke up after our first year together because I had been married to somebody who was very negative, and so I just always assumed that Harold had something negative behind what he was saying. And he kept saying, I'm not that other person. I'm not that other person. This is a different way of relating. But it just took me a long time to get that out of my emotional memory and realize that here's a new person who loves me and is positive and likes me and doesn't have those negative feelings attached to our communication.
Speaking of communication, this is not going to be sufficient. So we're going to continue with our series of a couple more times talking about communication and communication skills so that you can have what you need to communicate adequately.
Our next Treehouse Talk is going to be on honesty. See you next time.
Bye.